Hey, I'm Priya. I'm one of the young reviewers for the T.S. Eliot Prize in the Poetry Society, and I'm reviewing Karen McCarthy Woolf's new verse novel, Top Doll. In Top Doll, we get this strange and absorbing account of Huguette Clark's life. We learn that Clark was a reclusive millionaire who left behind a huge collection of antique dolls when she died at aged 104. Clark's eccentric life story has attracted biographers before, but Karen McCarthy Woolf's fictionalised adaptation offers us an interesting twist in that it's all narrated through the perspective of the dolls. Often these dolls give us a sense of some of the personal difficulties which marked Clark's life, but in the fashion of a picaresque novel, they also take us on a series of imaginative journeys through the imperial palaces of Japan, through Paris, through LA, and most importantly for the novel, through the slave plantations of Virginia. We access this setting through a 19th century ragdoll called General Obadiah, and I think that his prose recollections of the American Civil War are some of the finest in the novel. They're particularly interesting insofar as they offer us a contrast between the novel's gilded visions of Huguette Clark's New York wealth and a much darker vision of America. Within this context, McCarthy Woolf's dolls seem to do a lot more partying than we might expect, and the novel often seems to imagine itself as a kind of X-rated version of the Barbie film, and I thought this was part of what made it so fun and so lively to read. The weirdness of Top Doll's general premise can't really be compared to anything that McCarthy Woolf has published before, but it certainly carries across her interest in formal experimentation from earlier works. Specifically, I think that Top Doll seems to be testing the capacity of the novel to accommodate a whole host of different literary forms. The lead character Dolly is speaking in Franco sonnets, Lady Mimiko intersperses her prose with haikus, Miss Ting speaks in Jamaican patois, while the Barbies take to vapid abecedarians. General Obadiah, meanwhile, interpolates the memoir form, and his ear seems to be turned to the kinds of slave narratives written by people like Equiano and Douglas. Dolly's definitely the main character of the novel, but as all these different and charismatic voices crowd in, it becomes unclear as to whether she's the top doll. What's really interesting about McCarthy Woolf's writing is the way that it goads us to recognise the multi-voice nature of the novel. Perhaps we can even push this a little bit further and consider that Top Doll often seems quite uncertain about where its voices come from in the first place. Are they the expressions of the doll's own inner worlds? Are they ventriloquisms of Huguette's fantasies? Or are they the voices of the literary past itself, which seems to be invoked and parodied through all the different forms that McCarthy Woolf uses? Against the backdrop of Huguette's silence, then, the dolls ask us to consider how we find our voices, and, if we do find them, how we know that they are ours. One of my favourite ways of thinking about this is to look at the image which begins the novel and which also ends it, a single bouquet of daisies. Appearing in two poems which announce themselves as obituaries, this bouquet becomes a kind of doll-sized tribute to the life of Huguette Clark, much like the novel itself. But the daisies also seem like an anthology, in the sense that anthology literally means a gathering together of flowers. In other words, the bouquet becomes an image for McCarthy Woolf's ability to gather together all these different strands of literary history, to tie them up in her novel, and to experiment with them. I think this is a real intellectual achievement, and it is very much to McCarthy Woolf's credit that she loses none of her humour in the process. If you haven't read Top Doll already, then I really recommend it highly.